She stopped her car to help a stranger. What she discovered changed everything forever. The scorching sun beat down like a relentless hammer, turning the day into a furnace. Sarah felt the heat soaking through her worn-out uniform as she pulled out of the diner parking lot, tired but proud after another grueling shift. Her 10-year-old daughter, Mia, was waiting for her at home, and the thought of her bright smile was the only thing keeping Sarah's spirit afloat. But before she could reach home, something caught her eye. A man standing by the roadside, his clothes tattered, his face a map of pain and weariness. Without even thinking, she pulled over, her heart racing. "Please, can you help?" he asked, his voice a gravelly whisper. That was James, a homeless veteran whose dreams had been buried under layers of judgment and failure. As they talked, Sarah felt the weight of his burdens press against her soul. She heard his stories of love lost, of war, and the haunting echoes of loneliness that echoed in the silence between them. Tears prickled at Sarah's eyes as he spoke, his words wrapping around her heart like a vice. Here was a man like so many others who had fought battles she could hardly imagine, now simply trying to survive. She felt a surge of determination, the kind that drives someone to stand against injustice, and it filled every nook of her exhausted body. "I can help you," she said, her voice filled with unshakable belief. As they discussed plans for a better future, Sarah realized that their fates had intertwined in a way neither had anticipated. But with each altruistic gesture, the whispers from her neighborhood began to swirl into a tempest of doubt. Is she crazy? Her neighbors speculated behind cupped hands. What about her daughter? They muttered judgments like ropes tightening around her chest, suffocating her hope. Just as she began to plot a fundraiser for James, the fear loomed larger than ever. Will they even care? She thought, fighting off the shadows of doubt. The diner patrons, once familiar faces, had turned into a sea of skeptical eyes, judging her compassion, each questioning her choice to help a man society deemed unworthy. "You are putting your family at risk," echoed in her head. But she stood firm, the fire within her roaring as she clutched her plans. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Days crawled by until finally, the evening of the fundraiser arrived, a mix of excitement and dread knotting in Sarah's stomach. She felt more alive than she had in years, but the tension crackled in the air, ready to ignite. Just as she stepped onto the stage, her confidence began to waver. Dark clouds were rolling in. The community's skepticism hung over her like a storm about to break. Just then, a sudden altercation erupted in the crowd, plunging her into a state of disbelief. How could this happen now? Was her faith in humanity misplaced? A question echoed through her mind as she braced herself, ready to confront not just the crowd, but her own morals and belief in second chances. Would her fight for justice for James bring the community together or pull it apart forever? The crowd simmered with unrest, voices clashing like crashing waves. Sarah gripped the microphone, her knuckles white against the smooth metal. She could feel the heat of the altercation rising, and for a moment, her heart raced as everyone turned to witness the chaos unfold, eyes darting from one confrontation to the next. "Stop!" she shouted, her voice trembling but determined. Silence fell like a stone. All eyes locked onto her, a mixture of surprise and curiosity sweeping across the crowd. In that moment, she realized the power of her voice. She wasn't just here to plead for James. She was here to remind them of their humanity. "Can we take a moment?" she continued, her breath hitching as she struggled to maintain her composure. "This isn't about me. This is about a man who has fought for our freedom and is now asking for a chance to live with dignity." The tension was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Sarah scanned the crowd, searching for any glimmer of understanding. Some faces were still tight with anger. Others softened as her words sunk in. She pressed on, her heart pounding. I know there are fears. I feel them too. But have we forgotten how to share compassion? Have we forgotten that it's okay to lift each other up? A murmur rippled through the gathering, a mixture of nods and shakes of the head. But just as she felt a small spark of connection, a man stepped forward, arms crossed defiantly. And what about our own struggles? He bellowed. We barely make ends meet ourselves. Why should we care about someone who can't pull himself up? The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. It echoed Sarah's own insecurities, the concerns that rattled in her mind like loose change. She swallowed hard. Because we've all been there, she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Everyone faces hardships, and when one of us falls, it's up to the others to help them back up. James needs us. In that moment, she caught Mia's gaze from the sidelines. Her daughter stood small but resolute, her bright eyes glistening with unspoken support. Sarah's heart surged with hope. If she could show Mia the strength of community, the power of kindness, then maybe all this would be worth it. Let us turn this anger into something good, Sarah continued, feeling emboldened by her daughter's presence. Let us rally together, break down barriers. Let us create a fundraiser that not only helps James, but shows the world how much our community cares. Imagine, if we come together, we can change someone else's life. With each word, the atmosphere shifted slightly. The frowns on some faces began to soften. A woman in the back tentatively raised her hand. I've been struggling, too. Maybe we can host a dinner or something together. The moment felt electric. Inspired murmurs empowered the crowd, sending shivers down Sarah's spine. Connections were forming, ideas brewing. As the realization hit her that this gathering might just turn into something beautiful, an unexpected voice cut through the air, sharper than the rest. A familiar figure emerged from the shadows, someone who had been watching silently until now. It was Jim, a former friend turned distant neighbor, love and sadness etched in his features. You don't understand the trouble you could bring. It's deeper than just you helping him. Fear twisted knots in Sarah's stomach. She had been fighting for acceptance, but now she faced a much larger storm. What was his next move? Please, she began, but the weight of doubt around her churned like a tempest. Would her resolve be enough? Could she truly change perceptions and lives in such an unforgiving world? The audience fell silent again, waiting for the next turn of words amidst the brewing tension. Would she be able to stand her ground? Or would she lose her battle not just for James, but for the heart of her community? The moment hung heavy in the air, suspended in uncertainty. Are we really going to let fear win tonight? Sarah asked, resolved to hold her ground. The echoes of uncertainty loomed, urging the all-important question, who would step forward to stand with her? A tense stillness filled the air, as if the world had paused to witness an unspoken moment of courage. Sarah's heart beat rapidly in her chest, each pulse echoing her determination. She locked eyes with Jim, searching for a hint of understanding, but found only shadows of doubt clouding his expression. Morally conflicted, he weighed her intentions like stones in a balance. Then, softly, a voice from the crowd cut through the mist of uncertainty. What if we could help both? It was Marla, the woman who had proposed the dinner. Her timid question hung in the air, a fragile thread in the growing tapestry of solidarity. What if we focus on bringing everyone together, not just for James, but for all of us? A few heads nodded, trepidation giving way to curiosity. Sarah felt a flicker of hope igniting the embers of her resolve. That's it, a fundraiser that builds bridges, she urged, emboldened by support. A chance for us to not only lift James, but to lift each other, to show that we are stronger together. Jim scoffed, his voice rising again. And when one person's needs overshadow the rest, what then? Will your compassion turn into resentment? Sarah took a deep breath, the weight of his words pressing against her. Yes, there'll be challenges, but we can't let fear dictate our choices. Look around. If we take this step together, we create a better future for all of us, including those struggling. This is our chance to break free from isolation. The crowd simmered with anticipation, faces shifting as different emotions flickered across their expressions. Concern, hope, awakening. Slowly, a man stepped forward from the back, his frame tall and sturdy. "I know how it feels to be on the brink," he confessed, voice steady. "I lost my job months ago. I thought I'd never find my way back. But when I had someone to lean on, everything changed." His gaze swept the crowd, challenging them to confront their own vulnerability, that a sense of unity began to bubble up, the emotions washing over the collective like waves lapping at the shore. Sarah S. heart soared. "We can create a network here," she proposed, encouraged by the growing bank of shared experiences. "Let us set up support groups, share resources, pool our skills to help one another. This isn't just about helping James. It's about everyone who needs a hand." A soft chorus of agreement blossomed among the attendees, faces brightening with possibility. Someone mentioned hosting a community barbecue, where stories could be shared over shared meals. Another suggested a yard sale for donations. Ideas flowed like a newfound current, lifting spirits as the people began to visualize the transformation their community could embrace. Amidst it all, Jim remained a shadow, arms crossed tightly, frustration etched into his forehead. "You're playing with fire," he warned, voice low. "And when it all burns down, you may not find the strength to rebuild. Then let us make sure it doesn't burn." Sarah replied, her determination igniting. "We'll light the way with each act of kindness, until we see nothing but the glow of community shining back at us." The crowd erupted in applause, a mix of cheers and heartfelt encouragement. People started stepping forward, sharing their stories openly, connecting over struggles and victories alike. But as the gathering grew louder, Sarah caught a glimpse of Jim, as jaw clenched tight, the storm in his eyes revealing an internal battle. Suddenly, with a voice barely above a whisper, a woman from the back called out, "What if he's right?" Silence fell again, the question hanging thick in the air. Would the flames of hope spark new life or consume them all? Sarah could feel the weight of the moment pressing in from all sides, her heart wrestling with what was about to unfold. She took a deep breath, facing the crowd, ready for the next surge of emotion that was sure to come. As the crowd waited for her response, the question loomed larger than ever. Could this community truly unite against its fears, or would they let doubt tear them apart? What would it take for them to finally stand together? Sarah's breath caught in her throat, the question still echoing. She looked around, making eye contact with those who had suddenly turned back, eyes wide and searching for wisdom. The moment felt heavy, as if the air itself cracked with electricity. "Look," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "This is where we choose to either rise or fall." More murmurs arose, filling the space with a mix of anxiety and budding hope. She spotted Jim, frustration shadowing his eyes, but beneath it, there flickered something softer and unsettling curiosity. What would it take to pull that sting of skepticism away and replace it with trust? "This isn't a fairy tale," she continued, stepping closer to the crowd. "There's going to be risk. You know that. But sometimes, the greatest rewards come from the greatest leaps of faith. If we focus on our shared humanity, doesn't that lessen the fear?" Marla stepped forward, emboldened by Sarah's words. "I've seen communities come together in times of need, turning despair into action. We're all feeling the weight of the struggle. What we build here can be a lifeline, one that keeps pulling us all up." Her voice grew stronger, and with it, several heads nodded in agreement. Feeling that fervor ripple through the gathering, Sarah's heart beat faster, each thump like a drum urging her on. "Picture this," she said, her voice rising with excitement, "a community festival. Music, food, laughter, all to support each other and find a way through this darkness." "What about the logistics?" Jim interjected, the skepticism still there, but his tone softened. "You really think everyone will pitch in?" "Why not?" Sarah replied, meeting his gaze with determination. We are already sharing our struggles. This is about so much more than raising money. It's about lifting spirits, reclaiming what we lost. If we focus on each of us helping the person next to us, how can we fail? A man with worn-out jeans and a baseball cap stepped forward, a spark igniting in his eyes. I know people who can lend a sound system, and I can organize the music. We can make this happen, together. The crowd began to buzz anew, voices rising in a chorus of ideas. Someone chimed in about decorations, and another about food trucks, the warmth of community growing with each mention. The fear that had clung to them like shadows began to dissipate, replaced by the glow of possibility as they exchanged ideas. Laughter bubbled up, and for the first time in a long while, an air of camaraderie filled the room. Yet, Sarah felt Jim's shadow looming behind her, ever watchful. How could she pull him into this movement? "Jim," she called, her voice penetrating the jubilant energy. "You've been through this too? Haven't you? Your voice matters here. We need your perspective." For a moment, the crowd quieted again, all eyes on him. The vulnerability of being the center of attention reflected back at him. The struggle and doubt flickered in his expression, revealing a man torn between skepticism and a longing for connection. Maybe he started, his voice almost swallowed by the sudden stillness. Maybe there's something to be said for trying. If we put our minds together, Sarah held her breath, sensing the shift as the tiniest spark of belief flickered in the air. Would he let go of his doubts? Would the festival become more than a plan, but a bridge to healing, pulling them together as a community? "Let us show each other what unity looks like," she said, her heart racing with the weight of the moment. And then Jim nodded, very slightly, as if weighing his own heart against the trend of possibility unfolding in the crowd. But just as hope began to take root, the doubts began to reform like dark clouds above their hopeful heads. A newcomer, a young man with a half-closed fist, shouted from the back, "What if it all falls apart? What if it doesn't work?" The crowd shifted again, uncertainty creeping back in. Was the light they had ignited strong enough to combat the shadows still lurking? Would they face the risks together, or would they scatter back into isolation at the first sign of struggle? With that, Sarah felt the ground shake beneath her. The moment, once so vibrant, now hung in a delicate balance. She met Jim's gaze, hoping to anchor the crowd's fears. "We have to make a choice," she said, fierceness in her voice. "Will we build something real, or let fear win again?" The moment hung in the air, teetering, waiting. What would they choose? The crowd held its breath, caught in a fragile moment where fear and hope battled silently in their hearts. Sarah searched their faces, each one a map of worries and untapped resolve. She had ignited a spark, but now it flickered precariously, a candle in the wind. "Listen," she urged, tried to inject warmth back in a conversation. "What if we turn that fear into energy? Use it to fuel not just this festival, but our community?" A few voices rose, intertwining with her suggestion. "We've gotten through worse," someone reminded. "We've survived layoffs. Heartbreaks, we can do this." Jim stepped forward, seeming to shake off the weight of doubt that had held him down for too long. "Look, I've been hesitant, afraid to believe. But if we fail, we fail together. And if we succeed," his voice trailed off, but optimism glimmered in his eyes at the thought of what was possible. "Exactly," Sarah exclaimed, her excitement translating into momentum. "Think of what we could do, even if it's just a small getting together right now. Let that positive ripple out." The murmurings began to transform. People shared stories of times they had banded together against trouble, how laughter and unity had pulled them through their darkest hours. They became witnesses to resilience, every tale a thread in a growing fabric of community. "Let's make a list," one woman shouted. "We need to organize." More and more voices joined in. From tents to games, volunteers sprang from every corner of the room, eager to contribute. Surrounded by this burst of enthusiasm, Sarah felt the tides shift. The festival was no longer just an idea. It was becoming a reality. Yet, deep down, she worried about the undercurrents of those still skeptical. "This will take heart," she reminded the group, and commitment. Every bit of what we decide together improves our chances of succeeding. And the joy we find in each other's company will be our greatest asset. The room buzzed with ideas and negotiations, but amid the rising excitement, she noticed Jim growing quiet again. Sarah knew he carried a story that might resonate, a tale untold collection of grief and anger. "Jim," she called, the crowd slowly turning its attention back to him. "You have this important voice. I think it could be a game changer. What do you think?" His eyes met hers, a flicker of uncertainty rounded by the warmth of encouragement in the air. He took a deep breath, as if readying himself for a plunge. All right. I'll help. But I want us to make sure we keep our expectations grounded. Not every plan works out." Sarah nodded, knowing that every bit of skepticism contained a nugget of wisdom. "Absolutely. But let us also remember to celebrate every small victory. Each moment will help us grow together." And for the first time, she felt confidence creeping into the edges of her heart. Joy spread through the crowd, igniting new ambitions. They began forming committees, each group diving into the planning. Laughter floated in the air, banishing fear as people began drawing maps and brainstorming names for the event. Yet in the midst of the excitement, a sense of foreboding tugged at Sarah. What if their plans crumbled under the weight of reality? What if joy swiftly shifted to disappointment? As more ideas merged into chaos, she caught a glance of a woman with tears in her eyes. A reminder that everyone carried their own pain, their own challenges to face. She stepped closer, her voice gentle. "We're doing this together. No matter what, we'll support each other. That connection is what makes us stronger." But even as the crowd embraced her words, the tension remained a whisper of doubt still lingered beneath their enthusiasm. "Sarah!" Jim suddenly shouted, his eyes darting to the door, where a tall figure had just entered. "Look!" In an instant, the energy shifted again, and every head turned to face the newcomer. Curiosity washed over the group, the realization dawning that this unexpected arrival might change everything. The crowd's chatter faded into murmurs as they turned to scrutinize the unexpected visitor. It was a woman, her hair tousled by the wind, a brightly colored scarf wrapped around her neck. She stood in the doorway, framed by fading light, casting a long shadow that stretched across the room. "Excuse me," she began, her voice steady yet tinged with urgency. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." Sarah took a tentative step forward, heart racing. "No, not at all. We were just brainstorming ideas for a community festival," she explained, trying to gauge the newcomer's mood. "I think I can help," the woman said, her eyes scanning the crowd, a spark of recognition lighting them up. "I heard you might be needing some support. My name is Clara." With just a name, Clara seemed to carry an air of possibility. Some in the crowd shifted restlessly, glances exchanged between those who had grown weary of yet another meeting. Yet others leaned forward, intrigued by this new figure who might hold the keys to their dreams. "Support in what way?" someone asked, skepticism lacing their tone. It was Jim, his defensive posture returning as fast as his vulnerability had blossomed moments ago. Clara smiled gently, brushing a hand through her hair. "I've hosted festivals before, bigger ones than this. Actually, I have insights into managing volunteers, securing permits, and even getting sponsors. The trick is knowing how to turn your good intentions into actionable plans." A buzz of excitement rippled through the room. People whispered, leaning in to catch every word. But Sarah noticed Jim crossing his arms, still holding onto the weight of his concerns. "Why do you want to help us?" he asked, his voice clipped. "What's in it for you?" Clara met his gaze head on, and for a moment, the tension thickened like a heavy fog. "I believe in the power of community," she answered. "I've seen what people can do when they come together. I once felt as lost as many of you might, feeling like an outsider. But when I found a village that supported me, I discovered purpose." As she spoke, Sarah's heart soared a little higher. There was something familiar about Clara's journey, a shared experience that seemed to resonate with the crowd. Faces softened, walls began to lower. "Okay," Sarah said, stuck between caution and hope. feeling Jim's eyes on her. "If you have experience, what do you suggest we do next?" Clara took a step forward, her excitement contagious. "Let us start by identifying the strengths in this room. Everyone here has something valuable to contribute. If we can use those strengths in our planning, we can craft an unforgettable event." Jim still looked unsure, but Sarah felt the embers of change flicker anew within him, slowly taking root. They broke into small groups, brainstorming what they could offer. Ideas exploded like fireworks, and Clara moved among them, weaving connections, encouraging collaboration. For the first time, the room felt like a vibrant tapestry of aspirations being stitched together. But as the laughter and chatter grew around her, Sarah's thoughts drifted back to her lingering doubts. What if Clara's help came with strings attached? Could someone truly step in and help without asking for too much in return? She paused in her work, scanning the room again. The community around her felt electric, an evolving bond that had been rekindled. But was this spark strong enough to withstand the storms of reality? "That's it. We'll plan a charity auction as part of the festival," Clara exclaimed suddenly, her voice breaking through Sarah's reverie. "We can gather items from local businesses, raise funds, and strengthen our community spirit." Cheers erupted, but Sarah caught Jim's eyes again, the flicker of dread still alive there. Had they overlooked something crucial? "Before we get too ahead of ourselves," Sarah interjected, her voice steady. "Let us make sure we're all on the same page." And as she spoke, another figure emerged from the shadows of the doorway, catching Clara's attention. The air thickened with anticipation, another surprise waiting to unfold. Who was this newcomer, and how would their story intertwine with Clara's and theirs? The evening had only just begun. As the crowd turned their gaze toward the new arrival, a man stepped into the fading light, his silhouette illuminated momentarily by the overhead lamp. He looked familiar, yet there was something elusive about his presence. Clara's excitement faltered just a fraction as her eyes widened in recognition. "Ben," Clara whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs. A collective hush swept over the room as Ben took another step forward. He was someone that many in the community knew, a former volunteer who had drifted away, lost to the chaos of life. He wore a worn-out jacket and had a distressed look on his face, as if he carried the weight of unspoken stories. "Is this a bad time?" he asked, scratching the back of his head, eyes darting from Clara to Sarah, and then the crowd. "Not all," Clara said, her voice regaining strength. "We were just discussing how to make this festival a reality. Join us." Ben hesitated, his brows knitting together. Well, I'm not sure if I can be of help," he mumbled, but the very act of stepping inside the room felt like an invitation to something bigger. "Everyone has something to give," Sarah encouraged, her heart stirring at the sight of this man whose presence hinted at untapped potential. "What matters is that we believe in this community." Ben took a deep breath, and slowly, the tension in his shoulders seemed to melt away. "Okay, I have ideas, but I'm not sure they matter. Try us." Jim piped up, finally uncrossing his arms, his tone warmer. There was an uncharacteristic softness for Jim, maybe just a bit of hope slipping through the cracks of his skepticism. Ben began to share his thoughts. The atmosphere shifted again. He spoke of local artists who might contribute to the festival, of musicians he knew who could bring life to the event. There was excitement in his voice, and with each idea he floated, others began to contribute too, inspired by the rekindled spark around them. Yet, as Sarah listened, she couldn't shake the unease that had settled in the pit of her stomach. Why had Ben drifted away in the first place? What tragedy had pulled him from their community? Just then, Clara turned to Ben, a curious glint in her eyes. "What forces pulled you away, Ben?" she asked gently, not pushing, but inviting him to share if he wanted. Ben swallowed hard. The air stood still, and Sarah held her breath, wondering if the question would unlock buried emotions or leave him shut down altogether. "I lost my way," he replied quietly, voice cracking slightly. "I thought I was doing what I needed to do for myself, but it left me feeling empty instead. I didn't know how to come back." With those words, a silence engulfed the room, thick with shared understanding. Jim's posture softened further, and Sarah felt the collective ache of lost connections resonate among all present. Just when the vulnerability seemed poised to deepen, Clara broke through it, her voice brightening the dimming mood. But look at you now. You're here. We're all here, and we need each other. Cheerful chatter erupted once more, but Sarah was lost in thought. What Ben had said echoed in her mind. Was it possible for anyone really to help without running the risk of losing themselves in the process? The energy in the room pulsed, weaving together bits of laughter and hope like threads that could form something beautiful. But beneath it all loomed feelings of uncertainty. The night was young, but shadows lurked in corners, untold stories yet to be unveiled. Just then, Clara leaned in close to Sarah, whispering, "I think if we work together, we can help people like Ben find joy again, but it means we have to stay honest about our needs. Can we?" Before Sarah could reply, a loud crash echoed from the side door, and there stood a local business owner known for her vividly adorned shop, a look of panic on her face. "I need help. Something terrible has happened." Sarah's heart raced. What now? Was this a call to arms, or an unexpected turn that could scatter their fragile unity? This was just the beginning. The room stilled as the gravity of the newcomer's distress settled over them. Sarah felt her heart leap into her throat. The energy that had sparked with Ben's return felt fragile now, on the cusp of shattering. What happened? Clara stepped forward, her authority loud and clear despite the chaos in her eyes. The woman, Jennifer, clutched a tattered notebook to her chest. "It's the community center. I had just finished dropping off supplies when I heard the smash. I thought it was a break-in, but it's worse. I think a fire started." Gasps punctured the room. Everyone turned to each other, processing the sudden shift from festival plans to calamity. Ben's face paled, and for a moment, the memories of his loss seemed to blink back into focus. "Where are the firefighters?" Jim asked, his brows knitting tightly. "We can't just stand here." "I don't know. I just left." Jennifer's voice trembled, and it cut through the wavering sense of hope. "I think I saw smoke. It's spreading. It might take the whole building if someone doesn't act fast." "Let us go," Sarah said, her voice throbbing with urgency. She turned to Ben, who looked caught between fear and resolve. "We need everyone we can get. You're in this with us, right?" "Right," Ben nodded, the once dim light in his eyes flickering back to life. "I can help." In an instant, the mood shifted again, a fierce determination replacing uncertainty. With Jennifer leading the way, the group spilled into the night like a river bursting its banks. As Sarah ran, she felt the pulse of adrenaline surge through her veins. The streets, lit only by the flickering street lamps and the distant chaos of the center, echoed with their footsteps. A mix of fear and courage swirled inside her. It was strange how they all came together in crisis. How a moment like this could transcend every quiet moment they spent apart. "Keep moving," Clara shouted, her voice booming against the echoing buildings. When they finally reached the community center, it loomed in front of them, a silhouette against the dark sky. Thin tendrils of smoke spiraled up into the air, and the warmth of flames danced just beyond sight. It was a surreal scene, one Sarah had only seen in movies, except this was real. Firefighters were arriving, but so few. Panic threatened to bubble up again, but Ben's presence beside her made her steady. "What can we do?" Sarah implored, desperation nudging her forward. "Help direct people," Ben said, his voice resolute. "We can't lose control of the crowd. If we can keep everyone moving, we can keep them safe." They split off, voices rising over the roar of the fire engines. Sarah found herself directing a small group of onlookers, urging them to gather at a safe distance. Panic danced in their eyes, and she felt her heartache for her community swell, a fierce longing for restoration echoing within her. "It's going to be okay," she told a young mother who clutched her child. "Help us here. Just stay back." But even as Sarah offered reassurance, dread gnawed at her. What was left of their community center? Could they really rebuild after this? And, deeper still, would any of them find the strength to overcome what seemed an impending tragedy? Amid the chaos, Clara found Sarah, out of breath, but a fire lit behind her eyes. We can't let this break us. We need to rally everyone, pull together once more. This festival means more than we know. It's a beacon. Sarah looked around, witnesses and neighbors scrambling, reminded that loss didn't define them. Just as Ben had found a way back, maybe everything that would rise from the ashes could bind them in even stronger ties. As the flames roared and shadows danced around them, a single thought struck Sarah: what challenges awaited as they uncovered not just the fire's aftermath, but their own fire within? Sarah! Ben's voice broke through her thoughts. We need you now. Sarah turned to him, his expression fierce and urgent, the night shimmering with possibility. She inhaled deeply, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But would she be able to unlock the truth that could bring them together? Or would they unravel apart in the flames of despair? The battle to reclaim their community was only beginning. The cries of a siren blared in the distance, but to Sarah, it felt like it was far away, almost muted by the reality surrounding her. She focused on Ben. His determination anchored her as she forced herself to take a deep breath. Let us get those people away, Sarah said, trying to channel the growing chaos into action. Together, they moved through the thickening crowd, eyes darting from familiar faces to strangers united by fear and uncertainty. Your brother-s in there? A tall man shouted, desperation clutching at his throat. He was helping set up for the festival. I know, Sarah replied, desperation creeping in her own voice. But we can't go in. You could get hurt. We have to wait for the firefighters. Each moment felt stretched and elastic, a painful pause that resonated with her heartbeat. She could see the flames leaping higher now, illuminating the sky in an eerie glow. It felt wrong, so wrong, that their sanctuary, the heart of their community, was engulfed in destruction. I can't just stand here, he muttered, stepping closer to the chaos. But before she could voice her concern, Ben was already stepping next to the man, firmly placing a hand on his shoulder. Listen, we'll get him out, but we have to let the professionals handle this. Let us focus on gathering everybody safely. The man hesitated, looking between Sarah and Ben, the flickering flames reflecting the fear in his eyes. Finally, he nodded slowly, letting Ben guide him away from the inferno. You're stronger, Sky's voice echoed in Sarah's mind, a reminder of what Clara had said. You can't save people if you don't take care of the ones who are already out. The words grounded her, anchoring her to the moment. As they moved further from the fire, Sarah caught sight of a group of children huddled together, their faces pale. She hurried towards them, crouching to meet their eyes. Hey there, you're safe now. Where are your parents? One boy, clutching a teddy bear almost as big as himself, blinked up at her. They're over there. They said to stay together. Good job, buddy, she said, ruffling his hair to bring a semblance of ease into the situation. Let us walk over to them. Stay close. The boy and his friends nodded tightly, following her lead. The distance felt less daunting now, the community's bonds forming like a lifeline. With each step, Sarah felt a new sense of purpose awaken inside her. Suddenly, there was a loud crack, a snapping sound that sent chills down her spine. The crowd gasped collectively as a small section of the roof collapsed in a burst of sparks and ash, painting the sky above them with a grim reminder of what they faced. Get back, a firefighter shouted, rushing towards the group, his face strained with urgency. Stay behind the barricade. Sarah pulled the kids closer, wrapping her arms around them protectively as the weight of fear flooded in again. Their wide eyes mirrored her own panic, but she fought against it. You're brave. Remember that. Ben appeared at her side again, a fierce glint in his eyes. We need to stay organized. I see some of our neighbors setting up the food trucks. They might be able to redirect their energy too. We can't leave anyone behind. Okay, Sarah nodded, determination reigniting in her chest. Let us get everyone together, turn this fear into strength. As they moved through the crowd, Her heart beat louder with the pulse of a rising flame, their community, their shared memories, their resilience. It was all at stake. But as they gathered people, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle lay ahead. What moments awaited them after the fire was extinguished? What hidden fears might burn just beneath the surface, waiting to unleash? Sarah, Ben's voice pulled her from her thoughts again. Look, it's starting to spread to the library. The shadow over their town was deepening. Could they be the light that led everyone out of the dark? As the heat intensified, both from the flames and the emotions swirling inside her, Sarah steeled herself for what lay ahead. Would they have the power to rise, not just from this fire, but from within themselves? As the last flicker of light dimmed against the breaking dawn, Sarah stood amidst the remnants of what had once been a bustling community center. Now, it lay in smoldering contrasts of ash and hope. The cries of sirens faded into the aching silence as the firefighters wrapped up the final tasks, their weariness matching the weight in everyone's hearts. Sarah looked around, absorbing the devastation around her, yet there was a flicker of pulse strong enough to light a path through the ashes. One by one, neighbors emerged, their faces carrying stories of resilience, wreathed in empathy. They gathered together, piecing each other up, not just from the physical strain of the night, but from emotional scars that threatened to cut deeper. When Sarah's gaze locked onto Mia, she felt that flicker grow into an ember, then into a flame. Her daughter was a small spark of joy twisted with unease, tugging at Sarah's heart. In the face of devastation, Mia's eyes glimmered with unyielding childlike hope, the very thing Sarah needed to harness. "Mom, we're going to rebuild it, aren't we? The center?" Mia asked, her voice cracking, yet filled with determined certainty. "Of course, we will," Sarah replied, swallowing the lump in her throat. "We'll make it even better. We have each other, right?" She smiled, but inside, uncertainty wrestled with emerging hope. Amidst the crowd, Ben stepped forward, sharing a deep breath with Sarah. "Look around," he began, urgency softening his voice. "This isn't the end. It's the beginning." A murmur rose, kindling in the hopeful hearts of those who had gathered, transforming fear into determination. Could it be true? Could they rise from this devastation stronger than before? Their shared story flickered in all that remained as Clara took charge, rallying everyone around the importance of what they still had together. Let's create a plan to not only support those who need it now, but to elevate our entire community together. Her contagious enthusiasm rekindled connections amongst neighbors. As voices multiplied, surrendering their ideas, sparks of unity ignited within the group. A festival not just to mask the pain of loss, but to celebrate their resilience and determination to stand shoulder to shoulder through the struggles of life. We can make art, showcase local talents, and honor every person who stood here tonight. Let us show what our community is made of, Clara proposed. Cheers roared, hearts warmed, and spirits flicked back to life. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks. But these were not tears of sorrow. They bore witness to her transformation, an awakening to the strength and resilience not just buried in her own heart, but in the heart of every person around her. They were not just victims of circumstance. They were the heroes of their own stories, the collective heartbeat of something far greater. Encouraged by the discussions, they began forming teams immediately. The laughter and chatter turned into planning meetings, ideas rotating like the rising sun. As people connected, vulnerability turned into strength. They remembered volunteers lost in the fray, those like James, and those who had wandered, lost their way, but were now finding support in each other's arms. Be why the time night fell again. Sarah hugged Mia tightly, breathing in the warmth of her daughter, the spark of hope they had fostered together. People wandered in and out of her spotlight, all caught up in dreams of rejuvenation. Jim helped people coordinate logistics. Ben and Clara engaged musicians and artists who wanted to contribute, and everyone had a place and a purpose. "I can't believe it," Ben murmured to Sarah, eyes reflecting renewed belief in his community. We're doing this. Yes, she responded, pride swelling in her chest. Together we can rise. The next days unfolded into a whirlwind of activity. They salvaged what they could from the wreckage, and the festival turned into more than just a fundraiser. It became a symbol of revival, a celebration of their community. Music echoed through the streets. Laughter resonated from families, rebuilding that connection they thought lost, and colors burst into life as artists painted murals across whatever remained. As the festival day dawned, Sarah looked around at the vibrant tapestry of this renewed community, echoing connections laid in love and support, woven from hardship and united strength. The heart of the community was no longer just a center, but alive in every voice that stood alongside her. And when she saw Mia dancing in the grass with other children, joy radiating from her small frame, Sarah understood they had not just rebuilt their center. They rebuilt themselves. Transformation didn't come easy, but it took root in shared pain and purpose, birthing an unbreakable bond that reverberated through their homes and hearts. They had chosen not just to help someone in need, but to build something far grander, a community woven together by love, strength, and everlasting hope. As the sun dipped below the horizon, optimism sparkled in the cool evening air. Sarah stood tall, surrounded by her neighbors, united once more, heart aglow. Together, they had risen from the ashes, and they wouldn't stop now. This was merely the beginning. You need to subscribe now to witness the next chapter of this inspiring journey. This is the moment to show your support, your thumbs up. Your comments mean the world. Leave a like now to show the algorithm some love. Don't wait, not even one more second, to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your voice matters. Let's uplift each other together.